Hello and welcome to 1,000 Women, 1,000 Ways. I'm Jennifer and our guest today is Kath. Now her story starts with a legacy of cancer, breast cancer, throughout her family, her mum and her sisters, and because they were unwell, Kath took on the role of caretaker, which led to her own cancer diagnosis. Hi Kath, and welcome to the show today.
Hi Jennifer, thank you.
Now, today we're going to talk about a very, less spoken of cancer, less known of cancer. But first of all, we'll start with how it was for you taking care of your sisters and your mum and being the caretaker for them all through their diagnosis and their cancer journeys.
Yes, well, I had three teenage children, and that was a feat in itself. But then trying to take care of everybody else, I just thought it was my role to do that. But I soon I was sort of rather run down, and that's when I discovered that I had cancer.
And what was your diagnosis of cancer?
It was a gynaecological cancer.
And that isn't quite as spoken of, not as prevalent out in society.
No, it's not as prevalent, but I sort of would like to question a lot of women are having hysterectomies due to perhaps the abnormal pap smear, but we don't talk about this, and I would like to question how many women are having hysterectomies due to the precancerous conditions, because it's still part of our body that is being removed. So.
And with gynecological cancer, what exactly is that? Can you explain it for our viewers?
Yeah, well, there's ovarian cancer, uterine cancer, vulvar vagina cancer, and ovarian cancer. So there's just there's basically 4 or 5 of the cancers that women suffer in silence with, so not to mention the partners behind the women as well.
Yeah, because it's quite an intimate part of our body.
And it absolutely is, and the stigma is still out there, and I guess that's what I'm about, is breaking down some of the barriers and the stigmas and making gynecology normal, because just to say the word in itself, it's like, people want to run away from you, but it's part of us as women, and I just sort of think we have to take the factor away.
And that's why you're on our show today, to share your story, to start deconstructing those barriers.
That's right.
And make it okay to talk about.
Absolutely.
So which cancer out of the 5 cancers did you have?
I actually had vulvar cancer. Am I allowed to say that word?
Yes, absolutely, because it's part of our body.
Yeah, absolutely.
So absolutely, yes.
But it's a precious part of our body that society seems to have done the reverse to what the magnificent is of our genitalia as well. And
for those that don't know the action, or what is the vulva for?
Well, most people call it a vagina, and the vagina is the internal genitalia and the vulva is the external genitalia. And I thought, why is all this shame around this particular part of our body? And I discovered a Latin word in the dictionary called pudendum, and the Latin version of that word says, female genitalia, one who should and ought to be ashamed, the shameful part of a woman. So I just thought, whoa, should I be ashamed? And I was actually so isolated. I put an ad in the Woman's Day, and all these ladies wrote me these horrific stories about how they were being treated and how their husbands were dealing with it and their own personal life. And I just thought, I just can't live in the world that it is like that in this day and age, and something had to change, and I'm still 20 years down the track trying to change that.
So there was shame-based feelings around it and lack of support.
Absolutely. I went to find the support, but everywhere there was, it was like, still the shame. We'll talk about breast cancer, but let's not go down that track. But then I discovered like 1 million women with polycystic ovaries, 1 million with endometriosis and fibroids and prolapse, and the list goes on, but we don't talk about it. I think, well, come on, let's do something about this. So that just began my journey. It hasn't been an easy journey, it's still not an easy journey, but I'm pleased to say things are progressing.
So when you were initially diagnosed, what were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, I thought, well, should I go on? I felt like I was an it. I really didn't fit in with the women. I didn't fit in with the gynecologist. It was very much a very clinical And I thought, but where do I fit in? It was just, I find it hard to describe how I felt, but this is what I do today because I don't know how to describe what it is that not only myself deal with, but there's others out there that are dealing with this, but they don't have the voice that I've got. So hence I'm making a voice.
Yeah, you created your own voice to help other women through this.
It can be confronting for some, but I'm just telling the truth. So, the truth must prevail, they say.
Well, it was your truth and you had to live it and do live it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So were you offered chemo or an operation? What was the process of healing for you?
Well, I was given 6 weeks radiation and then I couldn't go back to work. It was just like I just couldn't cope with what was going on and the isolation. So, sorry, I might have to cut this. What was the question?
About the process of the healing.
Oh, the
that
process
you went through.
of the healing. I had to find my own way of processing the healing. I know I went to a singing group and they were very beautiful women and they took care of themselves, but because I had to sit down, I couldn't stand up all the time. I remember one woman saying, well, you can't sit here, you have to go and sit somewhere else. And I just felt so rejected. And there's lots of areas I went to and was rejected, but I learned from that rejection because I thought, well, we can't treat people this way. So,
And you rejected because it was physically, painful for you to sit down.
Well, to sit down and, to stand up for long times, and I still have that challenge as well today, I know that there is a lot of support for women with breast cancer and they have the pads to help the women under their arms and all that sort of thing, but there's not a lot for the women with gynaecological cancer that have their lymph glands removed, which is not a pleasant thing to have that done either. And this all sounds like it's doom and gloom, and I don't want it to come across like it's doom and gloom, but I just think there's so much work to be done in this area because the effect on the men and the partners and the sexuality between relationships, it just seems like it's not being dealt with, and because it's in the too hard basket. And I just think it's time and having this opportunity with you today is giving me a chance to try and take it out of the too hard basket.
And just so I understand it clearly, did you have to have surgery as well?
Yes.
So you had part of your vagina removed, is that right?
Not the vagina, the vulva.
The vulva. So you had the vulva.
I had all of the vulva removed, yes.
Okay, so which is why it's difficult for you to sit down and stand up and sit for long periods of time. Yes. Yeah, so there is a great awareness around breast cancer. People can understand because there are so many stories, but I'm just learning with you now that of course sitting down would create problems if you've had that kind of surgery.
Yeah.
So, and the isolation that will go with that, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah. But I also question, how can we have compassion for one another as women if we don't have you may not have endometriosis or polycystic ovaries, but if the woman in your workplace has this condition and I don't understand what you've got, how can we have that compassion? And even in the corporate world, because sometimes this is in the too hard basket, and I'm pleading with the corporate world to just take one look at what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve here to make a difference in the world.
Because there will be employees that have gone through the same as you that would need that help and support. And from what you said, when you joined the singing group to try and lift your spirits and get on with life, you were actually isolated because of the lack of understanding.
That's right.
That lady wouldn't have known what was going on for you at all.
So I've learned to understand where people are coming from. So I think I've gained a lot of insight from what I have learned about society and even the men in the picture as well. My husband had to take care of myself and the family, but I think he suppressed a lot of his emotions, and then 18 months later he had 5 bypasses because he internalised and he shut down. And quite often a lot of men do this because they do take care of the female, but it's just, we've got to open the floodgates and sort of talk about these issues.
And then provide support for the men too in how to support their women.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how did it impact your sex life, if you're open to talking about that?
No, I'm quite open about it. This is where it is difficult for me to express. I want to do it, but it was just so catastrophic and just so appalling and very, very sad. You know, the sadness just, I can't believe how sad it can be, and especially in the world that didn't really want to deal with it. But as far as the sex life was concerned, my husband was very patient with me, but it took a long, 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 long time. You know, I'm surprised my husband is still with me because, you know, just getting your head together and understanding how it all works out there, it was just tragic. It was just tragic.
And is there sex after surgery?
Oh yes, well I'm pleased to say.
Good.
There is some relief with all of it. I can still have an orgasm through the vagina.
Yes.
So a lot of people sort of, when I do my talks, a lot of people don't ask questions, but they come up after and they say, "Can you still have sex?" And I thought, "Yes, I can." You can see the relieved look on their faces. Oh yes.
Yes. Because if no one's talking about it, how do you know? Would you like to share maybe a couple of other questions that you get asked that people would ask you at the end of a talk because they're too shy?
Well, yes, they quite often they go doctor shopping. You know, it's like, well, my doctor has said this, and I've gone to another doctor and they've said that, and they just need to know where to go to. And because I can only suggest, you know, I'm not a medical person, so I have to be wary about, you know, giving out the knowledge, and so I just sort of direct them to, you know, like the cancer centres or whatever. But you can see after they come with that worried look on their face, it's like, oh, now I can talk to somebody about it, and their relief is there. And we do have organisations for these women to go to, but I'm all about opening the doors to them. Yeah. You know, open up the doors. Let's talk about these things out in the public. So. Yeah.
So 20 years ago, what support was there, if any, for gynecological cancer?
There was, I mean, I did go to the cancer centres, but nobody seemed to have gynecological issues there. It was all about the breast cancer or other cancers. So that's why I think I felt so isolated, because I just didn't seem to fit in there. So, but things are changing, so, you know, we are progressing, but just not enough.
And what do you think that, from what you're saying, is that the most important thing is to connect with other women who are in the same situation, because then you can identify and discuss. Whereas like 20 years ago, if you went to the Cancer Foundation, was it possible for you to be connected with other women with the same cancer?
Well, that's what I was challenged with 20 years ago. But ironically, I found a woman who was a friend of a friend, and she said, "My friend has just had that done." And I said, "Where is she? Where is she?" Because all I wanted to do was be with somebody who knew my pain. You know, it was really deep, deep pain. And when I found her and she found me, it was like, whoa, we found one another, and we've been friends ever since. So, but you see, with the breast cancer women who are so, you know, they so come together and they so support one another. And when I found this woman, it's like, well, I found somebody too, you know. But I put an ad in the Women's Day, and all these ladies wrote me these stories, and I just thought, you know, how come all this is happening? But I mean, there was some that sort of said, well, I can't talk about these things because it's clinical and it's intimate. And then I think, but the breast cancer women can talk about these things. Why is it we can't talk about gynecological issues? It was quite complex, but a lot of doors have been opened along the way. I did have a not-for-profit, and we sent a petition off to the government, and they had to send an inquiry, and that's how the National Gynaecological Cancer Centre has been established. And I've just won the Cancer Australia Award for Gynaecological Cancer. So,
well done.
Yeah, no, it was really good to have that recognition. It was like, from whence I came, that just to have this done, you could see that things are changing. So,
and that's been a 20-year journey. And I think you said then one of the most important things was sharing the hurt. When you found your friend, it was sharing the hurt, sharing the pain of what I'm going through.
Because we as women, I think we do learn from one another, and the sharing is the healing, but it's quite, well, we can share about things but don't share about gynecology. But this is where we lack our power. You know, once you can talk about gynecology and understand it, you become more empowered. You know, the fact that I can sit here and talk about these things, I am empowered. You know, and I want other women to be empowered with the knowledge before anything happens to them, or even after.
It's quite interesting that it's been more of a taboo. When you think about it, that is our power centre, our uterus. I mean, our children come from there. We create life. Birth comes from our gynecological functions. Yeah. So to have it swept under the carpet.
But if we can change the way that we think about that, it will be magic. But I'm hoping it will happen in my lifetime. So that's why I need to sort of get out there and spread the word. But I received an email this week from the Federal Minister Lay, and she's acknowledged the work that I'm doing. So it's good to sort of get these politicians to acknowledge. But my heart lies more on the ground level with the women. I want to talk to the women on the ground level. I want to see them taking action. And I have established an International Gynaecological Awareness Day. And
what day is that now?
That's the 10th of September.
The 10th of September, yes.
And I've just joined forces with the Jean Hales Women's Health Week, which is in September as well. And this year the theme was called The Elephant in the Room, which was an ideal way for me to bring out some of the gynecological issues, but under my own umbrella. But Jean Hales is the driving force of bringing these issues out. So it's great for me to have that strength that I can lean on, and then the politicians acknowledging that they're coming together as well.
So it's transforming and changing. There is greater awareness, and you're finding people more able to talk about this now.
But I've just written my book called The Not So Secret Women's Business, and I'm just doing another book called Unknotting Your Knickers, because I'm trying to put a bit of humour in.
Yeah, because I am laughing, as you can see.
I know.
I think they're fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
That's really good. But I've devised a paper talk. The paper talk we used to have at school.
Yes.
So I've devised, because gynecology is such complex words and it's hard for us to understand them. I've developed this thing, and it's just a one sentence for describing, say, endometriosis. I mean, it's a big word, but when you hear it over and over again, well, then you just get used to the idea of the name and what it means and what it stands for and how many women suffer with it.
So taking the shame away, shame from the name.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So what is your project foundation called now that you're running with?
Well, I did have my not-for-profit is separate to me now, but that still is up and running. But I'm just an individual now, and just getting out there. And I have got my quilt here. Can I show you?
Yes, let's see this amazing quilt.
This was done by the Perth Modern Quilters. Just check this out. I mean, that just speaks for itself. For many years I said, that's up the wrong way. For many years I've said gynecology, and people go, ooh. But if I pull the quilt out and they say, wow, what's that for? So it's just changing the way that we think about gynecology. So this has been my lifesaver, the quilt. And I showed it to the Country Women's Association, and then they invited me to speak at their 90th conference because of this quilt, because I was able to break that ground as a health consumer, rather than coming from a clinical perspective. So I was really pleased about that.
I'll make it fun, because it would give people where you put a smile on their face and go, I'm loving this little feathers.
There's the angry bird down here as well.
Yes, angry bird's great. So it's current as well,
yes,
you're showing it, you're up and coming and trending, yes.
But I've got another quilt over there made with corsets, and the 80-year-old ladies made this. But you see, even the 80-year-old women have been suppressed for so many years, and it's like, whoa, we're allowed to talk about this now, So while they're making their quilts, they're talking and they're laughing and expressing and sharing some of it, because there are some tragic stories about the suppression around gynecology that, these women are being freed just by simply talking about it, and I just love it to bits.
And great healing from it, because coming together to talk, to connect, like you say, sharing the pain that you went through and working through it together.
But I do have a friend in England who's a nurse, a Methodist preacher, and a gynaecological cancer survivor. And she's taken the Gynae Day a lot further than what I have. She has the police, the military, the fire brigade, all behind her, and the universities, and they have masked walls and everything. But I'm still challenged here to sort of get that off the ground. But, I'm hoping that I can use her an example of how the Gynae Day can be done.
And what do you think the difference is? Are you facing different challenges here in Australia as opposed to the UK?
Well, I am challenged because I need some business advice how to take it further. You know, I mean, I've got all this. I've got the politicians. I've got, you know, all these things happening. And Lisa Scafidi is the ambassador of my not-for-profit, and Professor Ian Fraser.
Yes.
Ian Fraser, the former Australian, he is the patron of my former not-for-profit. So, you know, people are saying yes, 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 but I'm still trying to get women's organisations to see the value and the power that is behind this and get rid of the shame and move forward with it. So, yeah, I am challenged, but some of it is my own doing because I don't know how to take it to the next level like the breast cancer women have done.
So that's the block.
Yeah.
That's the block that you're working through now. Is, you know, after 20 years, I want to take this even further now, because you have been invited overseas to speak internationally. Like you've been quite prominent on the circuit in terms of talking and presenting, haven't you?
Well, I am asked to when I'm in America in January.
There you go. It's a beautiful quilt.
I've been asked to speak at the Albert Schweitzer Centre in Houston. So that is a great opportunity for me to be able to talk over there as well. But in 1999, I was invited to America for the No One Alone Gynaecological Cancer Conference. So that was a long time ago. But you know, I had presented quite often overseas, but I wanted to happen here in my own hometown, Perth, in my own country, Australia. But I've got the English version to compare with, and so hopefully even what you're doing allowing me to have this interview, that there might be somebody out there that is willing to say, hey, you know, let's get on board with this, and we might be able to convince women's groups to really get behind it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the whole purpose of 1,000 Ways, is to give you a platform to reach viewers who may want to connect with you and say, that's me too. Yeah, which is really empowering. You get the empowerment from there as well.
So it's exciting times ahead, but I wanted to, you know, I'm not getting any younger, so I'm just hoping that, you know, we can just fast track it, and I hope to do that in the next 12 months. So please put the 10th of September in your diary for next year.
I will do.
And everybody else, and let's make this thing happen.
Yeah, start creating awareness.
Yeah.
Now, I have noticed you're wearing a medal there.
Oh yes, this is I've got 10 awards so far, including this is the Order of Australia. I was the Senior of the Year and Beyond Blue Senior of the Year of Western Australia, and but I was given the Order of Australia medal in 2010, and to my surprise, because I didn't know that somebody had nominated me, but I'm wearing this today to encourage other people who are doing some magnificent work out there to nominate them. And a lot of people say to me, oh, it's too hard, it's too long to nominate. But I really want to get this point across that all you need to do is fill out a form that's on the internet, and it's only just a one-page thing with a name, address, the contact, and basically that's it. And then the Order of Australia people go out and they have a look at who that person is. So it's not hard, because I see so many women and men doing some amazing things, and they too can have the recognition of the Order of Australia. So they do encourage us to ask other people and to nominate other people. So, you know, I really value this is close to my heart, this order, because I worked damn hard to get this.
Yes.
But there's others out there working very hard, and they need that recognition as well.
And often they can be quite humble about what they're doing, and this is why you want to talk about it, is to encourage others to be a part of it too.
Yeah, because if we don't talk about it and explain why you get the award, well then other people don't know how to, and it does give it a further recognition of the issue that you are trying to get the message out as well. So
it's like acts of service as well.
Yes.
For the community and what you're
it's
doing.
all about.
Yes. So going back to the personal side of things, how was it for your husband? Like you said, he ended up having 5 bypasses. How did it all start to affect your relationship? Because you had a lot going on, and you had 3 children too, and all of this.
We did have a lot going on, but I must confess, Tony was retrenched not long after that, so we headed off to America, and we travelled around America for about 3 months with my sister as a quadriplegic. So here we are with my thing, with Tony's thing, with my sister as a quadriplegic and her carer. So we tended to just do it, just get out there, enjoy life. And so our relationship just sort of there was rocky times, trust me, there was rocky times. And I actually left Tony at one stage there with the 3 kids because I couldn't get my head together properly about it. But I soon realised that, I needed and wanted to be with Tony, and, so I just had to go back and face it. But I guess I had to have time out for me to try and work out where I was in the picture. So it wasn't an easy road.
Yeah, and because I suppose our perception of who we are as women can shift when we go through life changes, and this was such a personal side of it and such an intimate part of you to shift and change that there will be some reassessing.
Oh yes, there is all the time, and then that's just the process of life, you sort of think, well, I've gone through that, that stage, and it's even like me winning the awards. It's like it's another process, you sort of think, well, there's another award, now you've got to work towards it, but it's the same applies with relationships as well, because, you do change from time to time, and, so you've just got to deal with whatever comes along at that time.
Yeah, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
It isn't a done deal just because you did this.
No, so that's why life's a challenge for me all the time, It's like, how do you deal with these things? But I've learned how to respond to people as well, because there are people that say, oh, go away, and I used to sort of think, oh, don't you like me anymore because of whatever. But now I understand where they're coming from and why they think like they do, and so therefore I don't sort of come in with that defence anymore.
And what did you identify if that person was pushing you away? What did you see happening?
What with
for that
me?
for that person?
Oh, for that person, I could see there it was probably a little bit confrontational for them. But having said that, if you plant a seed, then the tree may grow, and so they go and grow, or otherwise they just go on. If they choose for the rest of their life to think like that, that's okay. That's all right.
So perhaps you were showing them something that was uncomfortable to them.
Yes.
So they were, I don't want to look at that, I don't want to go there.
Yeah.
Because like you say, it's a taboo in society, we don't talk about it.
But it's how they've been socially programmed from little girls, it's like, and sort of be ashamed of your bodies.
Yeah.
And if that is in the older generation, then that would be passed down to the next generation. And I know there's a lot of younger generation that, this isn't taboo to them. But if it's not taboo, where are we talking about these things? If these young women have got polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, where are the voices? Where is the suffering that we hear about this? It's all under the carpet, and it just must come out.
Is there a kind of, like, the word that comes to mind is like as part of the shame, like a dirtiness. I always remember my nana saying, oh, dirty men. So she had this whole dirt concept in her head, which was obviously being imprinted and passed down. So that she felt, I can imagine if you were to meet her and speak to her, she'd be completely confronted because it's dirty, it's shameful. Cross your legs. We're both crossing our legs. We're taught to cross our legs. If I was interviewing a guy, he'd more than likely wouldn't be crossing his legs.
No.
So there's also that, all of the societal imprinting about how we should behave and protect our honour.
That's right. But you see, I'm trying to change this in 20 years. But if you go back to the word pudendum, back in, I don't know how long ago that was said, that we should and ought to be ashamed. Well, it's probably going to take more than another 20 years to sort of get rid of the shame.
Yes, all around sexuality. And things are changing and they are shifting. I think they say it takes 2 generations to change. Because like you say, you've got the grandmothers passing it to the daughters, the granddaughter. So it's the granddaughter's generation that will then make the shift because they've got the new understanding that came from the grandmother's generation.
Because even my daughter... sorry, something.
Do you want a tissue?
No. I just had a sparkle on my face. My daughter-in-law, she said, I know about all your work, Kath, but she said I couldn't get my granddaughters to use the word vulva, but she does now, and every time they do it, the granddaughter say, oh, my vulva, Nana, or whatever, it's like, yes, I've empowered my granddaughter. But she has a friend who said that she would never tell her daughter to use the word vulva because she might get into trouble at school because she used the word vulva.
Yeah, interesting. But I guess, well, in that case, there would be an understanding of when we say things and when we don't.
Well, that's
when
yes.
it's appropriate, the appropriateness of something, rather than completely hiding it.
Yes. So, but if they call it a vagina, it's just totally incorrect. So, and they do need to know where to use the correct word and everything. But what I was saying is that even though the younger generation are mindful of all of this, they're still not using the correct terminology.
Well, even without cancer, gynaecological cancer, when we have little ones and they're going to the toilet and 18 months old, 2 years old, how many of us actually use the proper words?
Yes, that's
we'll come up with little buzzwords for them. Oh, go to the toilet, and so the education probably starts there.
Yeah, well, it does. And when I see my granddaughters, they think nothing of calling it a vulva.
Yes.
It's just wonderful to know that they know the difference. So, yeah.
And how did it affect your daughters when you were going through this as well?
Well, I've only got the one daughter and the two sons.
Yes.
The sons weren't all that. That still doesn't quite sit right with them, but that's okay because it's their mother talking about these things. But I have to rise above all of that because I'm on this mission and I didn't have this done to me for nothing. And if I can make a difference, well, then that's what I have to do. But my daughter, because she had polycystic ovaries and endometriosis, and I felt rather guilty that I didn't know that she had these conditions, and I was sort of just fobbing it off like it's just a woman's thing. But I wish more mothers and fathers would understand about these conditions so that they can sort of support their own children. So my daughter she still has issues with her polycystic ovaries and endometriosis, but at least I know and I can understand that it's not just a woman's thing, it's something. And the more we can put funding and research into this and we do some fundraising, we can get more understanding and how sometimes we might be able to prevent some of these things as well.
Like you say, that more support around
Absolutely.
it, like in education, like you said, you didn't quite realise what your daughter was going through. And I guess it's even moving out into other spheres, like child health nurses to educate parents to call.
Use the correct terminology.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
So use the correct terminology because it takes away. It's like that myth busting. It's like got this sort of hazy fog, like you're saying, the barriers about what something is. It's getting real.
I've got an undies campaign happening over the cardboard cutout undies, and I'm pleased to say King Edward Hospital celebrate the Gynae Awareness Day, and Lisa Scafidi came and judged the pair of undies one year, and so they have a competition who does the best pair of undies, but I lost track what I was going to say there, sorry.
You were talking about how you had the Gynaecological Awareness Day and King Edward had taken it up.
Yes.
And we're running with it as well, so
Yes.
giving you support and encouragement.
That's right. So I do workshops with the undies and get the ladies to decorate it. And even Liz Davenport, who's an international designer, she donated some of her bling, that beautiful bling that she has. And so I'm aiming to get out into the community, have the workshops. And I was going to say, the ethnic women on the East Coast, one group celebrated the Gynae Day, and they brought all these Chinese ladies standing there holding their undies, as proud as could be with their undies. And I thought, whoa, even to get into the ethnic women to, just get it moving. And I've also won the Our Bodies Ourselves award in Boston in America, and I'm hoping that I can now. I've sort of sat on the fence after getting that award. It's like now it's time for me to go to them and say, hey ladies, bring out your undies because it's okay now, The world is changing, and we're opening doors for people perhaps like myself to let some of these issues come out and be heard and to make a difference. So
Yeah, and your work is tireless. Like you keep going because you are so very passionate about this.
I know. Sometimes I'm too over the top with it, but I just love what I do. It's just sort of as I'm getting older, you sort of like to see the changes happening a lot more. But it's in my blood. And but when I find that women's organisations have said, okay, we're going to pick up on this, then I will feel satisfied satisfied to sort of think, well, you know, it's really happening. But the United Nations have just passed a clause about reproductive and sexual health. So that's fantastic. Apparently they fought for 15 years to have that being passed. And now I'm hoping that the women's organisations will now put it on the table, put it on their agenda to say, okay, how are we going to deal with this? And I'm going to say, bring out your undies. Because there was an international women's organisation had a conference in Perth, and a lot of the ladies brought the undies and they had them all hung around in the conference area. And when I walked in, I could almost cry because I think, yes, they've listened, you know.
The message is getting out
there.
It
is, but not fast enough, so.
And what has inspired you on your journey to keep going?
Well, those women's stories who wrote to me, you know, I just cannot believe that we live in the world as we do with all this suffering, and it's all behind the closed doors, and it's like, keep them closed. It's like, open the doors. So I'm not sure whether that's what inspires me, but I hear on a daily basis, you know, how women have these issues, and it's like as if it was just a woman's thing. And then the relationship issues that go with it, I sort of think, well, come on, let's try and help one another. So I guess that's what challenges me.
Because it can have and follow on and perhaps a negative impact on a relationship if you don't know what comes next. After the surgery, after the healing, what next?
Yeah, that's right, where to from here?
Yeah, especially in intimate relationships.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show
pleasure.
today. I've learned a lot, and I love what you're doing.
Totally.
Keep going.
Okay.
Keep going. I know it's tough, but keep going. You're doing great things. And you must have helped thousands of women already.
Well, I'm not sure that I see that, but people say that to me, you know, but you don't really see the evidence. And but having the letter from the minister, it's like, well, she wouldn't register that for nothing. So I can see that it is taking effect.
And you're proud of Australian medal too.
Order of Australia medal.
So Order of Australia medal. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So well done.
Thank you.
And thank you for coming on the show. And I look forward to seeing where you go to next.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you were really informed by Kath's interview today, or you actually have gynaecological cancer yourself, please research Kath. Do you have a website?
Yes, it's kathmasella.com.
kathmasella.com to gain more information. So you can join Kath and I on the 10th of September because we'll do something, we'll organise something, and we will be there, and you can join us too. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.